My name is Barclay Radebaugh, and I want to welcome you to our Nations of Coaches preseason growth series. This morning's clinic is the first of 7. Our goal is to help you grow as a coach and as a leader. All of our sessions will include learning the highest level skills from some of the very best coaches in our profession. At the conclusion of our clinic today, please stay on for our Nations of Coaches character moment. These character moments have the potential to be program and life game changers. At Nations of Coaches, our goal is to serve you. Almost 20 years ago, Nations of Coaches was founded by the former executive director of the NABC, Jim Haney. Again, with you, the coach, in mind. Mr. Haney founded Nations of Coaches because he fully understood the pressures, demands, and pace you have as coaches on and off the court. Our mission is to see coaches and all whom they influence impacted for the glory of God. Our vision is to equip coaches to leave a legacy of excellence. And our strategy is to serve you, connect you, and equip you for a higher level of play. Today, we want to give you the very, very best information to equip you so that the many people that you influence will be positively impacted for the glory of God. So today, wow, we're in for a treat. Let me introduce our super talented and gifted panel of today's growth series. First, we have Coach Dick Bender from Clemson, fresh off a terrific Elite 8 run. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning.
We also have LaVall Jordan, the former head coach at Butler and the present general manager and assistant coach at DePaul University. Good morning, Coach Jordan.
Morning, Coach.
And the unicorn, CY. Possibly the top recruiter in the country, and the current associate head coach at Missouri. Good morning, CY.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
All right, let's get right to it. Let's help these coaches grow. I'm excited. Coach Bender, you're up first. Last year, I attended a Clemson game. I quickly noticed that your entire staff worked together in unison and with unselfishness. What have you guys done at Clemson that will help these other coaches watching today to build such an unselfish staff full of the unity that I saw?
Yeah, well, I think, Barclay, I give all the credit to Coach Brownell on this. He is, as the head coach, he promotes and expects shared ownership in our success and failure. And at the end of the day, he's given us an avenue to do that. About 5 years ago, we went to offense and defensive coordinators. So at the end of the day, you become very specific in your role definition. Not only the 3 main assistant coaches, but then also everybody underneath that, including the GAs and managers and people you have helped statting each side of the ball. So at the end of the day, the definition of offense and defensive coordinator, we have a zone offense and defensive guy, and then we have a guy doing personnel. So all that is intertwined. And so us collaborating and working together that way puts the ownership on us and allows us to present opportunities or thoughts and ideas to Coach Brownell, and then he can manage that how he sees best for what he thinks the team needs at that time. But at the end of the day, in a game, through practice, throughout the year, we know our role, and so our roles are very defined, and that really helps us gel as a unit.
Great info. Coach Jordan, during your time at Michigan as an assistant coach there, your staff, they built a very strong culture and identity. We all noticed that as we watched your team play. What was your role there in building that culture, and what is and chemistry, and what and vision, and what is the role of an assistant coach, in your opinion, in building culture and vision?
Yeah, Barclay, that's a a loaded question. We probably don't have a full Zoom to be able to talk that much. I see Coach Bender shaking his head and see why. But yeah, when I arrived at Michigan, and obviously I grew up in Michigan, so I had an affinity for the place. But I was fortunate to join with Coach Beeline, and who's one of the all-time greats, and learn, but also link up with Jeff Meyer, who I had a relationship with. We had when I got into the business, Jeff was an assistant at Butler. Bakari Alexander, who I competed against, he was at Detroit Mercy when I played at Butler. A guy named Brian Townsend, who we had developed a strong relationship with. He was at Ohio when I was at Butler, and we were both assistants, young assistants in the game. And then a guy named Greg Harden, who recently passed away, God rest his soul, but he was the fabric of Michigan football, Michigan basketball, and he was a sport administrator at the time. So us all linking up with under coach's vision, it was just amazing time. And I think you have to have talent, you have to have culture, you have to have both. And so establishing, a place like Michigan, who we knew the Fab Five and in those years, Glenn Rice in 1989, national champions, and kind of reinventing it under Coach Beeline's vision was important, and giving it a new ethos. I think the core values that we had established. Now, me coming from Butler, and everybody talks about the Butler way, and you see the Dick Bennett coach program, a Tony Bennett coach program, and but the DNA of your program and coming up with those core values, and us having a role as assistant in challenging Coach Beeline, because he had done it so long, never been an assistant coach, always been a head coach, right? Always chief, never Indian. And so it was like the grandmother, see why you know this, that has the recipe, but when you ask her the ingredients, it's like, oh baby, just put a little bit of this, a little bit of that, just taste it. And so getting Coach to really articulate who he is and his values, and get them visible, and make them tangible to the players, to everybody around the program, so that they understand this is who we are. It became what we called Wolverine excellence. And it came up with a mantra that I am because we are, the WE being Wolverine excellence, and those core values. And then when you ask about the role of an assistant in culture building, I think it's two things. I think it's the demonstrating, and then selection, because you are who you choose, right? Ultimately, it's not what's on the walls. It's who's in the halls and who's in the offices. And so, the coaches, as Dale Clayton would say, head coaches define the culture, assistant coaches demonstrate the culture. So you have to live it, you have to be it. It has to be who you are, and ultimately the head coach selects, the people that are like-minded and aligned. And then as an assistant, you demonstrate that to the players, and you model the behavior you want them to display. And then you go recruit guys that fit. And I think that is super important, selection. Who you bring into the building, it becomes your culture.
That's great, Val. Coaches, I hope you got some notes on that. That was an extremely rich answer, and Coach Bender's also great teaching points there. CY, you've long been known as one of the elite recruiters in our country. I mean, everywhere you go, players show up, and it's not a coincidence. So if you're giving these coaches watching today 3 or 4 key fundamentals of being a great recruiter, what would they be?
First, Coach, let me say this real quick. I think you, as our executive producer, needs a raise. You chose the theme of Hoosiers to get us ready. I feel like Jimmy Chipwood this morning. It's a bunch of young Thundercats on who don't know who Jimmy Chipwood and Hoosiers are. You better Google it. I know Coach Jordan and Coach Bender does, but I'm sorry, I had to say that. To get to the answer to your question, number one, I would say understand that the ability to evaluate is more important than being able to recruit. I know most people will be shocked by that answer, but I think the number one component to being an elite recruiter is you got to understand how to evaluate. Size for a position, Is he high energy? Understand human growth and development. Does he have a low hairline? Does he have hair on his chin? Does he have a body where he can grow? Can he gain weight? Does he have high-speed Wi-Fi? Is he a high character gym rat? All these things go into evaluating. Does he have a great relationship with his parents?
Wow.
Being able to evaluate is the number one component to being a great recruiter. Now, two, obviously, you got to be able to go in sniper mode. You got to be able to build a gate and control all the information that goes to the prospect. That's a gift in itself, learning who the key players are and how to put that puzzle together. And then last, I think this answer will shock you also. Being an elite recruiter is the gift and the curse. It pays the bills, but sometimes you lose respect amongst your peers if they think that you're not a basketball coach. So I would say the last component of being an elite recruiter is really study the game, be able to teach the game, be able to game plan, be able to do all the things that you
Right.
need to do as a coach, because now you have credibility as a basketball coach when you walk into a family or into a high school or to an AAU program and say, listen, I want to develop your guy. If they see that you know and can teach basketball, that makes you stronger as an elite recruiter.
Not just a great recruiter, but a well-rounded coach.
You can't be you can't be an elite recruiter without being a well-rounded coach, because you don't have the credibility.
Great answer. Got a text from a friend of mine watching. He said his pen is already out of ink. He's already got a page of notes. Coach Bender, you've been in this profession a long time serving. I see you you're everywhere. Recruiter, coach, leader of your staff, excellent in so many ways. What are the keys? What have been the keys to your professional longevity?
Yeah, I think first off, Barclay, and you hit it, servanthood. You know, I grew up in a single parent home with two older brothers. So it was all about, sacrifice and knowing your role and being part of a bigger plan. And so at the end of the day, I think serving the coaches, serving the program that I've been with, serving the head coach that I've been with, and then serving the players, that has really kept me going. And I think that's been something that is, at the end of the day, what drives you within this profession, and you have to make a decision. Is it going to be about you, or is it going to be about, and the best assistants, it's about the program, it's about the team. And you constantly have to make that decision every day, because we live in a me society. And at the end of the day, it's all about the guy you're trying to help. And so that's the reward. So servanthood, I think, has been the biggest thing. And I think every coach I've worked for and all the players that I've coached and other staff members that I've been involved with and have worked with and grinded through the good times and the bad times with, they understand it's never been about me. And so at the end, now I also have been a lifetime assistant. So that's the other part of it, but I'm fine with that, because at the end of the day, it's what drives you, what's at your core, and what's driving you to be good in your whatever you do. And I think being part of something bigger than yourself is really important, and I love that. I think the second thing's integrity. I think I've been honest with coaches, honest with players, honest with recruits. I've followed the rules, doing things the right way. And again, that becomes hard, in a profession where it's win at all costs, and, there's an expectation level. And so at the end of the day, I've stayed true to myself, who I am, and I've stayed true to the program and the coaches that I've worked for. And then the last thing I think is humility. I've always respected my peers. I never played high major basketball, played D3 basketball, and I've always loved the game, but always loved the different ways that you can, coach the game. What was great for me is I kind of grew up in like man-to-man. My early coaching years were like man-to-man, motion offense. But then, I got fortunate enough to be hired by Coach Bradley, who I think's on this Zoom, at Radford, and he was much different. He was pressing, secondary break, zone, So I saw different ways how to learn the game and how to teach the game, and I've always respected that. And I've never felt like I was ever better than somebody else, or I was always trying to like learn and still go to clinics myself when I can, and try to figure out different ways to help our players and help our coaches and help improve our program.
The biggest thing, Coach, I've noticed in you for a long time is the servanthood. You serve, and you have a servant's heart. It's a high quality, high quality. LaVall, you've been a successful assistant coach, successful head coach. If you were teaching this morning, the top 3 or 4 things that an assistant coach has to have, what would you say? What are the top 3 or 4 fundamentals?
Oh, that's top 3 or 4. I would say that Coach Bender just hit on one of them. I think number one, and you're looking at 2 of the best in the country, in the business. CY gave me some nuggets when I was a young assistant, young whippersnapper in the game. We were at a Black Coaches Association convention down in Orlando, Florida. CY probably doesn't even remember, but I had my notepad out. So I think number one, I would say humility, and Coach Bender just hit on it. I think because if you have humility, you don't have an agenda. You don't take things personal. You're going to have great ideas, but your head coach doesn't. He's got his own vision. He's not always going to use your idea. So if you take that personal, and your ego gets bruised easily. So I think the humility. And the humility to be a constant learner, as Coach Bender just talked about. You're constantly learning. You don't think you know it all. You have to grow. You're in a constant growth mode, and you don't let your ambition get in the way of your integrity, right? Because you want to be here. You're trying to get from this level to that level, and we all, want to grow and move. But humility, I would say, is the number one component. I think number 2, the knowledge of your coach, your boss. As Coach said, you're here to serve. The assistant coach's job is to assist the coach. So obviously in a unique position now, having been a head coach, CY has been a head coach, and then coming back in an assistant coaching role, every great assistant should, Coach Bender is tremendous. To be in that seat and actually know, because people will tell you think like a head coach, but until you've done it, and you've had all the information coming at you, all the ideas coming at you, you have to filter and make decisions. Now you're I'm a much better assistant now, having been a head coach. So I think knowing what he values and making that what you value, which again takes humility, because you're going to have your own ideas. I would say the assistant coaches take those notes of your own ideas, write them down, and then when you get your own program, if you're fortunate and blessed enough, right, you can implement those things. Because I've been under some of the best, Todd Licklider and John Beeline, assistant coach with Brad Stevens, and then played for Thad Matta, so some of the best in the business, and learned from them all, and had a big notepad so that if and when I was able to get my own program, then I can implement. But while you're there, how does your head coach receive information the best? If you have an idea, what's the best way to take it to them? And they're all different. People are different. So you're studying who you're working for to understand where do I bring the most value? And then when I have a suggestion, how does coach receive that? So knowing your boss is critical. I think 3, the ability to interpret the message. Again, your job is to make the vision come to life. So players, can you take away the excuses from them, right? And CY is one of the best relational, you have to have those relationships to take away the excuses and keep everybody mission focused, because guys will have them, and they'll have frustrations, they'll have emotion, they're human, right? But can you interpret that message to coach? Here's what he really means, and deliver it in a way where it creates a win-win, right? So that those guys stay mission driven, they understand. So that connection with the players where they truly value. So you're asking yourself, if they truly value and trust you and open up to you with their real emotions, you can knock down those walls and take away their excuses and get them to understand, no, here's what coach really means. Here's what he's saying, and keep them on mission. And lastly, you have to know your system. Similar to what CY said in recruiting, players want to be coached. And so if you don't know your system offensively, defensively, inside and out, whatever your role is, if you're offensive coordinator, defense coordinator, zone coach, whatever it is, if guys ask you a question and you can't help them get better in the structure that they're asking to perform in, right? You're lacking in that area. That is extreme. Been around the NBA for a few years now, doing some scouting with the Buck. Like, guys will discredit you right away if you can't help them get better, if you don't know the answer to what they should do on the court, in the system, what the play is, what the cuts name, the terminology, whatever it is. You have to know your stuff or you lose credibility with the player. So that competency is huge for your connection and for your relationship and for your trust, as along with the other stuff.
Great information, Coach. See why you're one of the most loyal people I know. Every time I speak with you, you've either just helped somebody or you're helping somebody. You're a friend to so many in the profession. And then every time I talk to you, you praise the head coach that you're working for. What is loyalty? Loyalty is super important in our profession. When I say the word loyalty, what does that mean to you?
Servant leadership, humility. These guys use those two, which I couldn't agree with more. I think that's the key. I think you got to understand that when you're in this profession, it's such a blessing just to be a coach, to work in a program under a head coach that thought enough of you to hire you, to be in a position to help kids, to help kids. But when I wake up every morning, I tell myself it is not about me. It's I want to help Dennis Gates implement his vision. I want to help the other coaches around me grow. And that's I want to be loyal to the end. I would say to the coaches understand this, all the young coaches on here, understand that when a coach hires you, your job is to protect his blind spots. Because the head coach doesn't know everything. The head coach is going to make mistakes. So he's paying you cash money at the 31st of the month to protect his blind spots, not to talk about him in public, not to say he don't know what he's doing. If he's making a mistake, it's your job to cover it up. And so to me, that's what loyalty means. I'm going to make sure I cover my head guys when he does make a mistake. I'm not going to talk about it in the street. I'm going to cover it up and make it look good. And that goes for the other assistants too. And I want to say this, you've said several times, I've been known as one of the best assistants in the country. And I got to be remiss if I don't say this. Again, I'm one of the most blessed guys to ever be in this profession. I work for Cliff Ellis and Robbie Lang and Eugene Harris. They raised me. I work with a great staff, great head coach. I work with John Schumann. He named me the associate head coach at Chattanooga. I had a great staff and a great head coach. I work for the great Paul Hewitt, who I think doesn't get enough credit. Took Georgia Tech to the national championship game. I love Bobby Crimmins, but Paul Hewitt took him to the last game. I worked for the great Jay Leonard Hamilton and with Stan Jones and Steve Smith and Dennis Gates. Great staff. And I'm blessed. I work for, God bless the dead, Rudy Keelan at Northeastern with a tremendous staff, Jay Young, Pat Scurry, and Rudy Keelan. And now work for Hugh Durham. I work for Hugh Durham and Doug Durham and that staff there. Now I'm with a young rising star who I think is one of the best coaches in the country, and Dennis Gates. And, I'm here with a staff that's phenomenal. Guys who are going to be head coaches, Matt Klein, Ryan Sharbaugh, Coach Smith Peters. And then I got the great Dickie Nutt, who's recovering from cancer, who I get to work with every day. So I pinch myself. I wake up every day and say I'm blessed because I'm here, because I've been with great people, great coaches, and work with great staffs, because you can't do it by yourself.
Coach Bender, when it comes to conflict, every day is not perfect on the staff. Every day, every personality on the staff isn't going to totally match. When it comes sometimes to conflict, sometimes we disagree with the head coach. How do you handle that as a great assistant, as a longtime assistant? Teach us how you have handled conflict within your staff, and even at times with some of the head coaches that you've worked for. How do you handle that?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you know, you don't get longevity and you don't get to this level without having an understanding of like, it's not your program, it's a head coach's program. So you have to, again, come back to the messaging, come back to the serving, come back to like the demonstration, as Coach Jordan said, of kind of like what his vision is for the program, the kind of culture he wants to establish in the program. So at the end of the day, on all of your staff and on all of your coaches that you're dealing with within your program, that has to be the driving theme. Your head coach should expect you to bring different ideas to the table, whether you're the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, maybe you're just the recruiting, whatever your role is, there's got to be, but at the end of the day, you have to set your ego aside and understand again that you're something bigger than yourself. And at the end of the day, it's his decision, regardless of how strongly you feel about it. And the other thing too, I think that helps a little bit again, and I give Coach Brownell a lot of credit for this, is like the role definition and kind of like everybody feels a part of what we're doing here at Clemson. And that's how you end up being at Clemson for 15 years, starting his 15th season. You know, first of all, he's attracted good people who have the right ideas, who have an understanding of kind of like, okay, we know what his vision is. How can we get that across to the players? How can we get across that to the families? And then the selection process of both of these guys have talked about is critical into who you bring into the program as players, what types of families you're bringing into the program, who you're connecting with outside the program, you know, in terms of boosters and things of that nature. So at the end of the day, you know, the conflicts get resolved, in my opinion, because what is the end result? You know, what is the why? Why are we doing this? What is the struggle that we are coming up with here? You know, at the end of the day, we have to do what Coach Brownell wants. And so at the end of the day, you might like a guy, you might love a player, you could be recruiting. You might love a player, but you know that does not fit what Coach Brownell, his system, the way he likes to play. At the end of the day, you got to understand that when you're bringing that to the table. And so I think by defining roles and like understanding your strengths and weaknesses of each guy, does have to be one guy on your staff that's willing to sacrifice, and again, willing to understand that kind of like, okay, this guy might have a strength in this area of kind of like relationship building. Like as you get older, and these guys are, you know, figuring this out, but I'm older than both these guys. So the relationships are harder. You know, nobody wants to double date on our team with me. You know, I can't get a double date with any of our players. So at the end of the day, I might have to lean on one of the other staff members to kind of help me with maybe my guy in my position group. And so I think there's ways that you have to kind of like work together in terms of like, okay, understanding the strengths and weaknesses, figuring out a way to collectively get what Coach Brownell wants done. And a lot of times that's meetings. I think the more you meet or the more you get together, the more you hang out, go to lunch, you know, talk about it, spend time after practice, you know, do group work, get two coaches together with a couple players and kind of like, okay, here's the why, because I think it's really important to explain to your guys not only the vision of what Coach Brownell and your players, the vision of what Coach Brownell is trying to get across that they may be frustrated with, but the why. Why are we doing it this way? What's the end result that we're trying to get? And so again, it's, you know, the right kind of attitude, the willingness to sacrifice, and then, okay, at the end of the day, here's what we're trying to get done for Coach Brownell. As LaVall said, the demonstrating what your program's all about and what your coach is, the culture he's trying to promote.
Barclay, that question was so good. I got to get a piece of that, man.
Let's go,
Can I get a piece
Siwa.
of that? I just want to add, Coach Bender, that was phenomenal. I see why Clemson is rolling. You are an unbelievable human being. I think as a coach, in terms of handling conflict, I think that's, and I think Coach Jordan would agree, that is the biggest part of being successful as a program. It's because it's going to be conflict on every staff. Uh, for me, that's something as a young coach I've had to learn to get better at, to work on my emotional intelligence. And what helped me get to the point where I wasn't in conflict with guys and I could help programs win is you got to tell yourself, okay, two things can be true. That's what I think basketball coaches don't understand. Two things can be true. So once you understand that, now you understand that, okay, it's 100 million ways to skin a cat. Two things can be true, but we got to do what's comfortable for the head coach and CEO of this program, right? Nolan Richardson,
Good.
40 minutes of hell. Pete Carell, Princeton. Tony Bennett, pack line. Boeheim, 2-3 zone. It's 100 million ways to skin a cat. Two things can be true. And when you understand that and you learn that and you have the maturity as a coach, then you'll be able to handle the conflict and make sure that your camp wins. At the end of the day, when you win, everybody eats.
That's really good, CY. Two things can be true. Val, big time commitment in our profession. Recruiting, gone. You have a beautiful family. You're a girl dad. What have you done? What's some advice to give these assistant coaches, head coaches that are watching that will lead to a strong marriage and a strong family and be a great coach as you have been?
Yeah, that's I'm blessed, Coach. God is, my wife, Destiny. She, I don't know if she's watching or not, but I mean, she's an absolute, superstar. I'm fortunate and don't deserve what God's given me, but having someone that understands and supports what God's called you to do ultimately, and believes in that and believes in you. So I'm blessed. With my family, 3 daughters, and CY knows this. Once you send them off to college, and we're in that stage of life where you just trust in your work. It's like, but I would say this, number one, I would recommend anybody just have a strong foundation with your faith, because there are ups and downs. There's stretches when you're gone. There has to be so much trust. So if you have that first guiding you, then things fall into place. Those conversations where whatever decisions you make as a family involving your other half in the job. Now, they don't have to know all the things. There's things you have to keep separate because, again, your spouse is always going to be on your side, right? Whether that's so to see why it's point a decision that the head coach makes, some things that you may, there's things that you do have to keep separate for their sake, but involving them as much as possible. Kids at the gym, at events, as many, they grow up in it with you. So I think involving your family is huge. I think the conversations when you're making decisions on maybe an opportunity here, an opportunity there. My wife and I try to subscribe to we're only moving because of a conviction from the Lord, not because there's an opportunity. We're not really convicted together about how to move because it has to work for our lifestyle as a family, and she's there with the girls. Obviously, you're on the road and traveling, so she's those responsibilities. It has to make sense all the way around, holistically for all of us. And then I think the last thing I would say is be present. One word I heard, I think Dana Ford, who's a tremendous coach, a tremendous assistant and head coach, Tennessee State, Missouri State. When you pull in, so I don't go walk in the house on the phone, because immediately you're letting your family know that the most important thing right now is this phone call, not them. And you just got here and they're excited that you're home because of the demands of the job. So I'll drive around the neighborhood, drive around and finish that phone call, sit in the garage and finish that phone call, right? See why? Because when I go in, and now I love Coach Do Not Disturb. Now I've been out of this thing for 2 years and I've enjoyed my family. Do Not Disturb is one of my favorite features on the phone. So put that thing on Do Not Disturb when you come in and engage and be present with your crew. It's not a matter of how much time, it is your present mindset in the time that you are allowed. And that is so critical and so important. If it's 10 minutes with your kid, but you're still thinking about that phone call you got to make to that coach or that play, you're not actually there spending time with your daughter, investing time. You're spending time, but you're not investing. And your ability to listen happens when you truly are present and engaged. And that's important with your children. That's important with your spouse.
Coach Radebaugh, that question was so good. I got to get a piece of that.
All right, see why we're running down. We're running close on time. So give us a minute. I know. Give us a minute. Give us a minute. Give us a minute of your thoughts on that, on family.
Oh, I was joking. I thought you wasn't gonna let me get in.
Oh, okay. All right, quick.
I thought
quick.
You I can always sub in.
I will say this real quick. I got a wife and 4 babies. Been married since 8/8/98, and I'm gonna give these coaches specifics. Movie night on Tuesday. Go get your mani-pedi with your wife on the 1st of the month. Get a massage at the end of the month. Go to lunch twice a week with her so she can get her points at Panera's. You'll stay married. That's all I had, Coach. Like they say in my era, whoop, there it is.
Coach Bender, popcorning around. 30 seconds. 3 or 4 personal disciplines that you have. 1 or 2 words on each discipline. Personal disciplines you have that have helped you be a great coach.
Yeah. I think one thing is listening. I think listening to your players, making sure you understand. I think 2, organization, really staying organized in terms of what you're asked to do, recruiting, basketball, all of that. I think the 3rd thing is kind of like planning. You have to plan ahead. You have to look ahead and plan. And, this job is not a day-to-day job. It's like a month-to-month job. You have to look ahead and forecast. And I would say the last thing would be just investment, just the investment in the relationships, investment in the families of your players, investment in your staff. At the end of the day, if you do all those things, you're going to build trust, because there's reasons, again, why, in support of the head coach, why you're doing what you're doing, and understanding your why I think is critical. A lot of players, they don't know that. And so that's part of your job to understand that. And it helps them improve, and they feel it and they see it. And when you're investing in that, they'll respect you tremendously.
Wow. Quickly, 3 words, 4 words, personal disciplines. You're a great coach. Why? Personal disciplines.
Things that I've done. One, coach, early wake up, because I like getting my daughters off to school. So try to early wake up is key for me. Prayer, meditation. So being able to get up and do that, because that sets the tone for my day and the peace of mind for everything that comes, because whatever I had planned, you might get one phone call from a whole different day than you thought, right? I think that is time blocking to coaches point, Coach Bender, like planning, but kind of blocking the time, whether it's for your recruiting calls or, if you're going to go get that mani-pedi with your wife, and, the things that are important to you, protect those things, whether it's your workout or, your movie night, whatever it is. Right? And then I would say lastly, what Coach Bender said, trying to become and I'm growing at this. I'm still growing at CY, becoming an elite listener for whether it's your staff around you, your head coach and his vision, what he wants and what he's trying to get accomplished. or your family, your spouse, and things you need to address. If you're not listening well, right, it's hard to be elite husband, father, and assistant coach.
See why I bring us home? 3 or 4 personal disciplines that have helped you be the great coach you are.
I'm gonna try not to be redundant because these guys are so good, but I have to start with prayer. Prayer helps you be at peace and manage the stress of our profession.
Amen.
There's a lot of coaches that's struggling with their health just because of they can't manage stress. And then I would add on to the prayer is, your health is wealth. I think in order to be a great coach and making this profession, you have to go to the next level in terms of eating right, resting, and you got to exercise 4 days a week to be good. I think those 2 things. And the last thing I would say is for me, because I don't want to be redundant, but film study has been huge for me. I think film study is the basis of everything: recruiting, player development, installing your system, understanding your system, learning your system, and just being able to evolve. Evolution is the number 1 word in civilization. Cars get better, shoes get better, TVs get better, and you got to be getting better at a rapid rate. Coach Bender brought up something that we could discuss. Becoming the old guy's tough. Like, you really have to evolve because, I don't think this generation respects wisdom, experience, and their elders the way our generation did. Young Thundercats, they'll tell you quick, hey, that's the old stuff. We doing the new stuff. So as an older coach, you got to be able to evolve with the game and learn the new terminologies and the way to teach the game and the way the game is evolved and the way they play it now.
Great wisdom. Coach Bender, if they have further questions for you, best way to contact you real quickly.
Email dbender@clemson.edu.
Coach Jordan?
Email is best, ljordan9 at DePaul.edu.
Coach Young?
Email cjykxd@missouri.edu.
Thank you, guys. I don't think we fully know how valuable this conversation was. There's so many rich points that you 3 elite coaches made that can make a difference as coaches serve, as head coaches serve. And thank you. Thank you. So coaches, we're going to move now to our NOC character moment. These character moments will have the potential to change your program and to change your life. Today's Nations of Coaches character moment is coming from our executive director, Tommy Kyle. He's given his heart and his soul to Nations of Coaches. He's an incredible leader, an incredible man, and most importantly, an incredible friend to so many in our profession. Tommy?
Coach Radebaugh, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Hey, coaches, I want to say that was amazing. Some amazing nuggets there shared by those 3 coaches, and we're thankful for that. I want to take just a moment, actually just a couple of minutes, to share probably one of the greatest leadership nuggets of all times. It comes out of the oldest #1 best-selling book of all times, and it was given by whom I would say would be the best leader of all times. And that's the book is the Bible, and the leader is a guy named Jesus. And I think there's a principle, and this is what I know about coaches today and everyone we come in contact with. In our profession, in our world, everyone desires to be great. We all have a desire to win. We all have this desire to get better. It's why so many of you are on this Zoom this morning, is we want to get better. There's something inside of us. And I want to tell you this morning real quick, that's okay, because that's the way the master coach made you. He created each and every one of us to be great. And over 1,000 years ago, he taught this nugget to his team. Many of you are very familiar that Jesus had a team himself. They were actually called disciples. He had 12 men. Now, 11 of those men, his leadership principles stuck. One of them didn't go so well. But on that team, there's a great story. We don't have time to go and dive into the story this morning. If you want to read it for yourself, it's found in Mark chapter 9. Go to verse 33. And in this passage is, I believe, one of the greatest leadership nuggets ever taught by the master coach. He was at the end of his life. And I don't know if you've ever been able to be around a leader, a high-level coach or a high-level leader when he knew his life was about to be over. If that takes place in our world today, I mean, we are all very focused. We're all type A individuals. I mean, you think about when you know it may be that last game, it's the end of a tournament. I mean, you think about how just watching film and details, the attention to detail goes up. When I've been around a couple of people, they knew their time on earth was coming to the end. And man, their attention to detail is unbelievable. Well, that's the situation we find here in this passage in verse 33. Jesus knew he was about to leave the earth, and he had some things he had to get done. And that day they were on the road to Capernaum, and Jesus, kind of like many of you getting on a plane and getting on a bus, you're up front and your team's in the back, and you're thinking about the game, and a lot of times they're goofing off. Well, it says that day here in this verse, it says that when he got to Capernaum, he set them down in the house. He set his team down, his staff down in the locker room in the office, and said, "Hey guys, what were you talking about?" And what happened as they walked on the path that day is his team began to talk, argue, goof off of, and they begin to argue about who the greatest was. And I love in this passage because I can picture a locker room where as a coach, we know those kids have done something they shouldn't, and we ask them, and crickets, no one says a word. Great leadership lesson here. We don't have time to teach today. He didn't say, "How dare you?" As we lead people, great leaders cast vision and speak vision into the lives of the people they lead. They don't talk down to them. Jesus did not say, "How dare you desire to be great?" because he knew he had created each and every one of us to be great. But yet what he did in that moment is he told each and every one of us how to be great. Verse 35 says he set him down. He said, "Anyone who wants to be first must be the very last and servant of all." Greatest leadership nugget of all time, shared by the greatest leader of all time, says, boys, you want to be great? You'll be the servant of all. You break that down in the Greek and Hebrew, the original text it was written in, it means to leverage your time, your talent, and your treasure to meet the needs of others. In our society today, that goes against everything the world says. In our society today, it's to be great, you've got to have a certain amount of money. So you have to drive a certain type of car. You have to have a certain 401k. You got to win so many championships. And I want to encourage you as coaches and leaders today. Great leaders serve first. We leverage our time, our energy, our power, our wealth to meet the needs of others. And that you were created and we were created to be great. But may we learn from the greatest leader of all times. He could have came in and been born in the nicest hospital. He was born in a stable. He could have left this earth in a Lamborghini, a Ferrari, or Porsche, but he rode out on a donkey. He could have had the nicest of the nicest, but he leveraged everything he had to serve others. Coaches today, may our legacy be that we serve well. That people that either coach with us or play for us or they're around us would go, he impacted my life more than anyone else because we served well. We led well. Each and every one of you were created to be great. Go be great today. Thank you for being on this call. Thank you for all you do. God bless each and every one of you. We're here to serve you. Thanks, Coach.
As we finish up, thank you, Tommy. That's rich words. You want to be great? You want to be great, serve. If you have questions for us, or you'd like to know more about Nations of Coaches, please email me at bradabaugh@nationsofcoaches.com. We want to serve you. We want to be a organization that helps meet your needs so you can go be great. So thank you for being on. Next week is incredible. We have Coach Bob Ritchie from Furman University talking about analytics, how analytics can help you win. And so have a great week. God bless you. Go serve. Go be great.